MSD Martinsville is a K-12 school district in central Indiana. They serve about 4,500 students across their schools. And today we sit down with Kurt Bodell to talk about how they've deployed Byte. They operate 11 Byte kiosks across their schools. In just a 180-day school year, these kiosks have sold over 22,000 products, generating $50,000 in gross sales. The beautiful part about this is that any profits are actually flowing back to the schools themselves. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I certainly did. Thank you for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. Really excited to hear how you guys are using Byte kiosks. And before we dive into the nitty-gritty, maybe start by introducing yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to share my story. So I'm a K-12 food service director within Indiana. So we're a school district of about 4,000 students. We have 10 buildings throughout our school district. So we're a K through 12. And then our staff is who we service with our Byte coolers. All of our teachers and staff around the buildings is who we cater to with our Byte technology.
And how did you first hear about Byte, and when? When did you first?
Yes. So definitely for us, we've always looked at our responsibility for teachers and staff. I mean, it's not just students, but for both of them. And so we had vending machines that were operated by full service beverage companies. And so during COVID with staffing issues, they did not want to service those full service vending machines. And then also, like, I'd always been on my radar is when we get those reimbursements every month from our beverage contracts and those machines, like sales tax was always the very first thing taken out. So within Indiana, any school district that self-operates, we don't charge, or we're not required by state statute to charge sales tax to our staff. And so that's one thing. If we bring the money in, the revenue into ourselves, we don't pay sales tax, where if it went through like a beverage company or another vending company, sales tax is collected. So that was going to save us some money to our staff. And then it allowed us to basically look for not just a beverage machine, but something that also did fresh food and other items during that school day for our staff.
That's fantastic. How many Byte kiosks are you guys currently operating, and where have you placed them?
Yep. So a year and a half ago, we invested in 3 units, and those are for our largest schools, our high schools, our secondary, our middle schools. And then that next full year ago, we invested in 8 more. So we have a total of 11 units, and we have one at every school campus and then one at our central office. So yeah, definitely.
This is for teachers and staff, is that right?
Definitely. Everything in our Byte coolers is strictly for our teachers and our staff that are in the buildings. We're also very close to a large Indiana University, a large college campus. So we get a lot of people in classes or people within our school buildings, doing community, education or those types of things that we also kind of, they'll also use the machines and things. But yeah, we're definitely a community-driven school district. So we have a lot of people in and out of our buildings.
And what's the typical number of staff you have at each of these locations? What's the range?
Yeah, so that's definitely important. So our elementary schools are super small. So the 7 elementary schools that we have, our smallest school only has about 20 staff. So those, the volume on those isn't that great. But then at our high school, typical staff is about 150 on that campus every day. And that's, by far our busiest machine. We just have the one machine there. We stock it usually twice a day just because it has about 40 purchases a day. Yeah, so it's definitely, it gets a lot of use. But because that's on our campus, it's easy to go down there a couple times a day and fill that up.
Out of curiosity, what's feedback been since you implemented these?
Yeah, it's been well received by everybody. We set it up basically, our Byte coolers are a separate little business within our school system. So every month we give whatever revenues back in that account back to the school, and then food service bills. So we typically charge more for items that are purchased through the fridge than what we would in the cafeteria. And so that extra revenue then goes back into the school if there is extra revenue. Some of our smaller buildings don't necessarily have that extra revenue every month. So we kind of use our high school and our central office accounts to offset, any of the losses there. But it's important for us as a district that we're very consistent when it comes to offerings. Definitely with teacher shortages and just staff shortages in general, we want to be that employer of choice when it comes to custodial services and our educators. So anything that we can do to provide extra benefit to them, having food options in our staff lounges, 24-hour food access. A lot of our times, second shift custodians didn't have options for food. They're calling, Uber or different places to get food. And so that was the other thing, like the safety concern that we had for just these drivers just showing up at our schools, being buzzed in.
Yeah.
And so we, reduce those visits from those food delivery companies by having these options available 24/7 to our staff.
You guys are ahead of the game in terms of the way you're thinking through this, in terms of the value delivered to all of your staff. It's really admirable. How are you stocking the units? How do you source products? Tell us a little bit about the ongoing
Yeah.
operation.
So annually, our department, I mean, we were already purchasing about $1.1 million a year from our main food distributor. So just coming along, them and being like, hey, what do you have, as far as ready to eat items or different containers that we might be able to source? So typically in K-12, we have what we call the mail route. So you have somebody that drives from school to school and they deliver, what if it's a student record or maybe a check to somebody, or so you already have somebody in those districts doing that.
Yeah.
So that person basically is funded by the school district, the gas, the vehicle. And so now all they're doing is going to the cooler and throwing those food items in that cooler from one central kitchen. So for us, we didn't have to go find somebody to stock it. We basically just added an extra stop on that pony route or that carrier service that we already had going to every single building every day. And then, the sourcing the items, I mean, our food vendors like us. I mean, we pay our bills on time. We're very open. I mean, we're a repetitive business, K-12. I mean, I know what I'm going to have, for lunch next month for all my schools. So it's like our vendors really enjoy to work with us. We have great relationships, even with manufacturers. I mean, we deal with a company called Riches for bread products and different things. And they're able to provide, we do like nosh boxes that have like bread items that we pair with cheese or grapes or those types of things. So we're able to bring a lot into our kitchens with our vendors that we already have established.
That's great. So that it was just an incremental use of all these existing operations.
Yeah.
In place. It's fantastic. I think you guys are using some of our features in some pretty novel ways. Tell us about your favorite feature within the Byte dashboard and how you're using it.
Yeah, so I always say I don't have favorites. I just try to use everything that I can to learn. So basically, I think one of the neatest things that kind of touched my heart last year. So we actually had one of our smaller schools. They lost one of their teachers that passed away, and so we had a lot of people wanting to bring in different food items and different things. And we're like, well, how can us at central office support those teachers during that time of need? And so what the biggest thing was, like, there was no drinks or there was no, different things for them to have. So they maybe had chicken and noodles there, but there was, items missing. So we actually made that kiosk free, just that kiosk for that entire week for those staff. And we're able to subsidize that cost through our central office. They were able to pay our food service fund. So that's being able to kind of that, what do you call it, the dynamic pricing allowed us to do that there. And then one of the things I always look forward to, the past 2 August, we've done we'll do the coupons for all of our new teachers. So we'll give them like a $5 off coupon, and so that gets them used to using it and not being scared of it, because it is it's new technology. You might see it in the airport or those types of things, but necessarily it's a little bit different than what they've seen. So that's probably my 2 favorite, just being able to give pricing, give those coupons out, and then being able to, if we need to just market free, it's there. Yeah. I think on the way to work, I was thinking about one of the other benefits that happened this year. We lost like network capabilities in all of our districts, and the units were able to record purchases. And I looked at the cells when it came back up, and like our superintendent was in here at 1:00 in the morning buying stuff. And I was like, who was here? And it was like him, our technology director. I think our fire chief was in here, but he was able to provide that service. At 1:00 in the morning, they knew they could go grab something out of that cooler, and it just,
that's amazing.
Works. Yeah, it works seamlessly. So.
Yeah, I think they can work up to 3 days completely offline with no connection, and then batch process those transactions. That's a cool story though. One AM trying to figure out networking at a school. I can see that they were probably under the gun. You mentioned discounts and coupons. How do you, like, on a higher level, how do you handle the finances and flow of funds through these kiosks?
Yep. So we use another platform, like an online invoicing / financial software. It's a free platform. I won't plug them, but so that allows us to keep track of basically every month we put in the sales and we put in the expenditures that we have. So our food tags, software cost, and credit card process. So those are the 4 fees that come out every month. And that's all done within that software. And then any coupons and all that stuff's all done, automatically. And then the food costs are tracked. So as long as our food cost is updated for that item within your product list, we run off of that. And then we don't have waste, because anything that usually like a 3-day window is what we try to keep items in there for. Like it's very fresh for our staff. It goes back into our serving lines and our students. So we don't typically do anything crazy there. And then we give those monthly or every other month, we'll go back and cut checks for those bigger accounts that have some money in there.
So you're truly using, from a reporting perspective, because you're using the food costs within Byte's dashboard, you're able to see the full P&L effectively of each of those kiosks in a pretty seamless manner. And then anything that's generating margin, you're cutting check to the school itself.
Yes. And I think that's one thing my year and a half with Byte is the change. Like one of the updates that you guys made was being able to export on that home screen or that dashboard, those because I used to copy and paste those.
Oh, okay.
Before that was an option. Yeah, so that was probably like my favorite thing when I saw that a month or two ago. That saved me so much time this past month being able to do that. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Have any like ideas or feature requests? We're very much an organization that is driven by customer feedback. So send it my way, Kurt. I guess to wrap up, like anything that you would tell somebody who's considering using Byte?
I think, if there's a hesitation within K-12, or even outside of K-12, you're always looking to do better or service your customers better. And, there's all kinds of stuff out there. Just definitely look through what you're wanting. And if it allows you to reach those goals, just go for it. I think a lot of times fear within making choices, you can start small. You don't have to, I think, buying 11 units might be a little crazy for me and where I was at, because but starting with 3-4 units and then making it work. I think one unit's not going to be enough a lot of times unless you're adding to something else that you already have going on. But I think just making that choice and then working it, seeing it through, and understanding like, hey, how can I utilize this to better my environment that I'm in. So
it's fantastic what you've pulled out, Kurt. You are a gem, and kudos to the impact that you've had at each of these schools and the staff that you guys serve. I appreciate you getting on this talk with us and sharing your story and everything that you've done. Anything else before we wrap?
No, thank you very much to you and your team. I know it's new technology, and just thank you for putting the time investing it.